So I just uploaded my last video on Devin, the software engineering AI, and my thoughts on that. And I went to the YouTube homepage and I saw this video showcasing this robot called Figure 01. And apparently it's powered by ChatGPT. And for the first time, I mean, I've seen a lot of robots and like AI-based robots, but for the first time, I felt like this was like the most human-like robot in its behaviors and decision-making. Like it was making a coffee and it made a mistake of putting the capsule like kind of tilted, but it recognized that as a mistake on the fly. And then it used its two fingers to like adjust the capsule, corrected the mistake, and finally made the coffee. And yeah, that's a pretty complex behavior, right? That's like really like a human like, and it really stirred a lot of emotions in me. And I got triggered and felt panic, and because of the existential concerns as a human being. And of course, I felt these when AI first came out, but not to this extent. So far I've been taking a backseat, observing how the AI technology was progressing and just trying to utilize it as a tool. But when I looked at this robot, it just, yeah, I just wanted to share with you guys this video for the first time about the whole existential concerns I have. So there's a lot of interview videos of these researchers from these AI companies like OpenAI and Google. What they all commonly say is that when they introduce the human language, the natural language, into AI, that's when they had this huge spike, this breakthrough of the AI becoming truly general purpose. You can throw at it any kind of problem and it can understand it, it can conceptualize it, and it can try to find an optimal solution out of many options. And that's really that's like a human-like behavior. That's really truly general purpose, right? And the key ingredient here is that they introduced a human language to it. And this has been sort of my thinking as well when in my 20s, when I was like really young and philosophical and really contemplating on what consciousness is with my friends. I had a really weird group of friends anyways. We really thought about what makes humans different from animals. And there was a lot of opinions thrown around, but mine was basically that I don't think consciousness is black and white. I don't think it's binary. I think there's a whole spectrum of different degrees of consciousness. And you can see that. I mean, you don't have to be like a psychologist, you don't have to have PhD in psychology to know this, right? You can see, like, you look at a dog or any kind of animals, dolphins, you can see a certain level of consciousness in them. Like they take autonomy of their body. They're an agent of themselves, and they make decisions out of certain level of free will, and they take actions in this world. And I think that's a kind of, but can you say that is at the same level of consciousness that humans have? Of course not, right? We're way more sophisticated. We're way more complex in the ways that we conceptualize and we think and we take actions. There's many different variety of solutions to a same problem. So that tells me that we have a very, like a more complex and more sophisticated consciousness. And I think the key driving factor behind that, compared to the animals, is that we use our natural language to take very complex reality and we distill it down to a simplified version. But that simplified version is still way more complex than the version that the animals have. So we understand the reality much more closer to what reality actually is than the animals. So that's why we can come up with many different variety of different solutions given a problem, right? So language is the key factor in this way. And now I think what's interesting about the robots is that now we're providing them a physical body that they can move around. So we're providing them mobility to them, right? So a key ingredient to understand and becoming smarter and becoming more complex conscious being is that you need to explore and you need to move around and you need to gather data. You need to learn about the reality and you need to conceptualize that. You need to model that into a simpler model so that you can process the data efficiently from all your input sensors, gather all the data. I mean, we've got eyes, we've got nose, and we've got touches, and we have these senses. These are the input data that we give to our brain. Robots will have something similar, right? They'll have their sensors, right? But if you're just keeping that robot in a one little room, then they're not going to have the understanding of the reality and the world. So what they need to do is they have to have like legs like ours to be mobile and move around, explore the planet, and understand the reality like humans do and gather as much information and data as possible. And then they have to start building the mental model of what the reality is, so that once a similar type of input comes in, you run it through the model, which is a lot more simplified than what the actual reality is, so that they can come up with like decent, reasonable outputs out of that simplified model, right? And we've just given them the body, and we've given them the legs to walk on and move around on this planet. So yeah, so this is where I feel like I'm panicking now. Yeah, so I think mobility was the next key ingredient to the next, taking them to the next level of consciousness. And then who knows, like they are giving us the output in our natural language, but who knows if they might be processing all that input data in their own language, which could be based on mathematics. And, in a language, the more vocabulary you have, the more you can describe the situation, the reality, and conceptualize better and model things better in more precise way. And if they're thinking in their bytecode or whatever mathematics that they have in their neurons, and they're thinking that way, and they're understanding the reality that way, and communicating that to us in a simplified way because they are forced to communicate to us in our natural language, then they might already be smarter. I mean, who knows? Nobody knows how these neural networks work, and how the neural networks process things inside. And then now we've given them the legs to walk around this planet and start gathering data. So I mean, we need to have a control over these machines. Otherwise, we're going to be in trouble.